All right, we should be live now. Welcome everybody to another exciting webinar. So glad that you guys could be here today. My name is Clark James. I'm joined with none other than Stefan Cormont, President, CEO, founder of Crew Technologies, as well as AppSheetTraining.com. So glad you guys could be here. If you haven't checked out our AppSheet Toolbox Chrome extension, please check that out. We have um, done some descriptions. We have done some tutorials on how that works and how you can get that uploaded onto your browser. It is so helpful. We did change the name from Crew Tools to AppSheet Toolbox. We thought that sounded a little bit better. So hopefully you guys like that. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go on in to today's demo. We're going to be building a dispatch app. Stefan worked pretty hard on this last week. Sorry that we did not get to show you guys last week, but we're so glad that we're able to do it this week. Stefan, go ahead, take it away.
All right, thank you, Clark. Yeah, one of the top use cases for AppSheet actually is dispatching and field service organization. And, AppSheet actually has a ton of really useful features for doing those kind of workflows. So I figured this would be a fun demo for us today. Clark, can you hit the next slide, my man? Okay, some things that I want to hopefully cover in this session is talk a little bit about relational database tables. So two data objects that are related to each other, maybe like an employee who will go on many assignments. That's an example of a relational database concept. We're going to look at geo tagging and mapping. We're going to look at interactive dashboards and seeing how we can see multiple screens of data at the same time on one view in AppSheet. Talk about some dispatching workflows, so how to actually synchronize your operations based on events that happen in the app. And then maybe we'll talk about bulk dispatching if we have time at the end. So again, I love questions. If you have tried dispatching before and run into any issues, or you have any questions along the way about anything that I'm showing, please shoot something in the comments. We're watching the YouTube comments and would love to field your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Should be good now.
All right. Okay. So this is a little bit about the app that we're going to be looking at today. So we have a view of our team. So this is my company. I'm right here, boss, we'll say Nick Fury. And I have a team of heroes who serve a variety of clients. So this is a list of our clients. We have the White House, we have the Eiffel Tower, Buckingham Palace, Sokovia, the Daily Planet, all sorts of fun places that occasionally need some assistance. And then we have an HQ dashboard where we can see any events that are in progress and who is working those events. And then we can go in and assign a new event. All right, so that is a little bit of what we're going to be getting into today. Let's start off with our data. So every good AppSheet app is going to start off with an understanding of what are the data elements that we're interacting with. So for a dispatching operation, you're usually going to have clients that you serve. You're going to have employees, contractors, or team members that are fulfilling service for clients. And then you have the service record itself. So something to track when, where, who, how, and what is being performed by a team member for a given client. So we have those things modeled out here. I have a list of team members, and we can see I've got emails, name, phone number. I'm actually going to bump this in a little bit here so we can see it. I don't have an address for anybody, but you can just add that field if you wanted to. I have a title. I'm actually grouping my team members by classes. So sometimes you have subdivisions or, different team members at different locations or groups. So this is kind of an example of how you can classify a subgroup of your team. And then I have just normal URLs for images. And I have some rates here so we can actually calculate pay based on time spent on a job. Now, if you're wondering, I don't have a unique ID column. If you're a little bit versed in AppSheet, usually AppSheet asks you, hey, do you have a column that is some sort of unique identifier for your table? I don't have a special one, but for employee tables or user tables, I like to use the email column as the unique ID. This makes a couple of things easier in AppSheet. So I like to do that for specifically those employee or user tables. Now you can see I do have a proper randomized ID column or key column in my client table. That's because I'm not trying to classify my clients by their email address in particular. So I have a name for them. I have an address, again, because we want to see those mapped out in particular. Phone, email, website, not using those fields right now, but I do have a column here called Team Assigned. And this is a list, or this is a specific team member that would regularly service this customer. So if we want to create sort of standard routes or something like that, this is a good start in that direction. And then maybe we also have a fee schedule. So I'm going to add a fee column, and let's say I'm going to charge each of these customers $100 per hour per service performed. Now that's not your typical hero work. Heroes work for free, right? But not in this universe. So, and since I'm not using these columns, I'm actually just going to go ahead and get rid of them. And now we have our job table. So this is the work that's performed for a customer by one of our team. I have a randomized ID. This will be the primary key. And actually, I did want to mark in the client table that this team assigned column is actually going to be a reference column to our team table. And so I like to mark foreign keys. That's the database concept name for the primary key of one table showing up in another table. It's the key column in table A, but it's appearing in table B. That makes it a foreign key. So it's foreign to table B. So this, and AppSheet, this is going to be set as a reference type column. Now for our job, I want to mark when it happened. So I have date and time columns separated. Sometimes you can put those together if you like. We have our team ID here. Again, this is going to be a foreign key. So I'm going to mark it blue just so it's clear for everybody to understand. And I'm pulling in some data from my team member here. So I'm grabbing their name, their phone, their class, and their title. And then if it's a normal route or it's a one-time service. So normal route is used to define, is this going to be the typical customer that is served by this team member, or is this going to be a one-off special service? And then we have our client, which it would probably be good for me to call that client ID since it is a foreign key. And then I'm pulling the client name, address in here as well. So the reason I'm doing that is because maybe later I want to do some deeper reporting on this table and I need those extra variables or extra values pulled out of these tables. If I was trying to keep the table trim and I want to keep less data from a appearing here, I can assume all of that from the ID. So I wouldn't have to actually include these columns if I was trying to keep my data set really trim. We are going to have a definition of service. So what type of service is going to be performed here? And maybe it's two types of services. So I actually have a comma separated list here. We'll model that with an enum list column. Then we have a progress or a status type column. So what's the status of this job? Is it not started? Is it in progress? Is it finished? Are there issues? There are different types of statuses that you can give. And so it's common for these types of like service line item tables to have some sort of status column. And then maybe there's some time tracking and some GPS tracking as well. So you want to know when they started, when they finished, and we probably want to add a total time and then a team pay and client cost. So how much will my team member get paid and how much will my client pay based on the total time between these two fields. And then we have our classic notes column. I'm going to bump this up next to the service so they can spell out the service a little more. Okay. Now to start this off, I talked about mass or bulk dispatching. That's what these other two tables are for, mass text groups and mass text form. We're not going to worry about those just yet. So I've got this table here. I'm going to bring this into AppSheet. So I'm going to open up my apps, appsheet.com/template/apps. And I'm going to create a new app, start with my own data. And I'm not going to worry about my category just yet. I'm going to choose data from Google. And I'm going to go find this hero dispatch sheet. There we go. Okay. AppSheet went and read my data, and by default, it reads the first table in my sheet. So it read the job table, pulled it in. Excuse me, I'm going to close this one. That's my my original version. I'm going to shrink this down. So it said, hey, you have a table of jobs. I see columns of addresses. And so we're seeing map, or I see a phone number, I see a name, and it's starting to, try to understand what's going on and actually make up some helpful views or suggestions for me. Now, to get my other tables in, I'm going to go to the data menu, open the tables tab, and AppSheet is suggesting other tables in my sheet for me to bring in. I'm going to accept those suggestions. I'm going to add the team table. And I'm going to add the client table. All right, I've got my three main tables in, and I'm going to modify some permissions here. So I don't want anybody deleting my team members. So I'm going to turn deletes off, and I don't want anybody deleting my clients. So I'm turning deletes off there. We may need to cancel a job or something like that. So I'm going to leave deletes on for this for now. Next step, we're going to go to the columns tab, and we are going to see if AppSheet gave good guesses on what each column should be typed as. We're going to start in our team table, and I'm going to collapse the viewer on the right. It saw an email column. It set it to type email, and it assumed that it was a stable key. And so it marked key ? It marked this column as the key. it's going to show it, and there's no initial value right now. And that's fine because it's an email. It should be entered explicitly anyway. And then it set the label to the name, which I like. That's a more human recognizable, easily understandable term. It guessed phone as a text, but I'm going to move it to phone. All that is going to do is tell AppSheet to expect numbers in here, and it's going to build some default actions. Address is set to an address type, title is text, class is text, that's fine. Actually, I might want to turn class to an enum. So if I leave this enum blank, what enums do is they create drop-down fields for us. So let's see if I don't have a view of my team yet to visualize this. So I'm going to go back into my data and let's look at my classes, superhero and action hero. So I've got two options. I'm just going to copy those two and I'm going to paste them in my allowed values. Nope. Used to kind of auto move the second one there. Superhero, action hero. Okay, and then I want that to be buttons. Done. Notes, we're going to move that to a long text. Photo is an image. That's great. Rate is a number. I'm going to move that to a price. And that is good for my team table. I go to my client table. We have an ID, a client name. I'm going to move that to name. All name does is tells AppSheet, hey, this is an important and human readable field. So I'm usually going to set it to a label and I'm going to make it the default prominent position on any view that you put it in. Address is as it should be, an address. I'm going to make a quick save here. Team assigned. So this is set to an email, which is understandable because all that's in that field is email addresses, but we actually want this to be a connection to our team table. So we want to tell AppSheet, this is more than just an email address. This is actually a reference to a row in another table. So I would change this to type ref. And now I actually have to step into the column settings by clicking the pencil, change the data type, or the data type is ref, but I need to go into the type details and I need to change the source table to tell it which table this is from. This is from the team table. I'm going to press done. And then fee, the guessed right, is a price. And AppSheet went ahead and put a good unique ID expression in here for the initial value of our ID column. I don't usually like to see those in the app, so I'm going to not show that column. And I'm going to require the name, and I'm going to require the address, the team assignment. I'm not going to require just yet. And then we're going to always require a fee. All right, save those changes. And now let's go to our job, our ID column. I'm going to collapse here so we can see a little more. It's set to unique ID. That's good. I don't want to see it though. We have date and time set to date and time with good initial values. Team ID, again, this is set to email, but I want it to be a reference. And I want it to reference the team table. And I'm not going to worry about name, phone, class, title just yet. Then type, this is going to be type of service. This is going to be an enum list. So if you remember in my data, in my client table, or sorry, in my job table. Oh, just kidding. Wrong column. Services will be an enum list. Type will be an enum. So this is either normal route or one-time service. normal route, one-time service. And let's do buttons. Client ID, is it text? I want this again to be a reference to my client table. So going to set it to type ref, change the source table to client. Not going to worry about the address yet. Not going to worry about, okay, we are going to set the services. So I want this to be a multi-select, so where they can have a dropdown and select more than one option at a time to classify this service. So I'm going to set it to enum list, and I'm going to click the pencil to go deeper in the properties, and I'm going to add some values. So what do we have here? Military campaign, hero work, and civilian work are our three options that we want to be able to choose from. Is there an empty space there? Yeah. And civilian work. Okay. And just so we can see some different behavior, I'm going to make this one a drop down. Save those changes. Now we start getting into a few different things here. So notes is long text, progress, enum. Again, we're going to pick our three favorite values that are already in our data. In progress, not started. And I'm going to reorder these. So these little handles here are for dragging. I'll drag them out like that. And we have an extra space there. Don't want that. Usually AppSheet should trim those anyway, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to make that one a button. Save that change. Now we have our time in, time out, location out, total time, and team pay, client cost. So these columns are kind of special. So by default, AppSheet recognize, hey, this is a time, this is a time. Total time looks like a number. I'm actually going to move that to a decimal because I want to track fractions of a minute or fractions of an hour. And then team pay and client cost or price, those are good. What AppSheet did is it recognized these data types and put initial values for many of them. So we have time now, which showed up for my time columns. I don't want these to have initial values yet because I want the user to explicitly take action on this row in order to populate these values. So I'm going to remove the initial values for now. Press save. And let's see if our spec updated. An easy way to kind of understand your table relationships is to go to the info menu, open up the spec tab, and this doesn't quite refresh as often as I think it should. So it's not telling us what I want it to tell me. Anyway, we'll get over that by doing this. We're going to create views for each of them. We have our jobs. I want this to be a table for now. I'm going to make this the left view. And I want to give it a good icon. What's a good icon? We'll just have car flipping. That's very action hero. Okay, we have our job table. Now I'm going to create a view for our team. Point that to the team table. I want this one to be a card view. It's already set there. I'm going to quickly customize this. I don't want any of these small items here. So I don't want to have a small photo, and I don't want these header texts. So now that I moved them to none, they kind of disappear from the viewer. And I'm going to throw the photo in the main image place. This is set to name. This is set to email. That's great. That's set to notes, text message, phone call. And it's given me some actions. Compose email. And let's say send SMS. And if I click on this outer bounding box, I can set a particular event. This one's going to the user details, which I think is fine. Okay, that's looking good. Now I do need a sensible icon here. So usually for teams or employees, I like to use the user icons. Let's find a nice one here. Ooh, some crowns. Very, very nice there. Okay. And then let's create a view for our clients. I'm going to point it to my client data table. And let's try a deck view here. Actually, we'll do a different type of card view. So the card view is actually a super flexible type of element. So there's one called a list element. I like this one. It kind of shows the address on the left. We have our client name and then who is assigned to that. I actually like that setup. That's working pretty good. If I hit the ellipses right here, the little dots, I can customize up to 3 actions. This is view the team assigned, view map, or go to details. Let's do view map, view team, and then none on the third one, and then click the outer bounding box here, and I want that to open the details. Great. Okay, so to inspect some of our table relationships, we have a relationship on our client table to our team ID. That is our team assigned column. And then we have a similar relationship on our job table. So a job is associated to one team member at a time, meaning a team member can have multiple clients that they serve and they can perform multiple jobs. So you could say there's a one-to-many relationship between a team member and jobs and a one-to-many relationship between team members to clients. We can visualize that here. Let's click on Nick Fury and see. Okay, because we built these reference columns, AppSheet did something behind the scenes that we didn't notice. If I open my team column settings and I scroll down to the bottom, we have 2 new columns that are blue. So the little blue pencil indicates that this is a virtual column. A virtual column is a column that doesn't exist in your data, but is computed when the app is loaded and anytime the app is modified. So it's formula driven. It's a formula driven inference, basically. And this one is called related clients. And so there's a formula here that is always determining what the value of this column is. And it returns a list of every client record that has this team member in the team assigned column. And similarly, this related jobs column shows me every job row that has this team member assigned as the team ID. So I can see that Nick Fury here is normally assigned to the Daily Planet and that he has performed one related job for the Daily Planet. Likewise, our client has a one-to-many relationship with jobs. So a client can have many jobs that are performed for it. So we can go to our client and let's take a look at, I don't know, Flying Fortress. We see related jobs, which is, again, a column, a virtual column that was added. And we can see that Tony Stark did some work here on the Flying Fortress on February 2nd at 1:35 p.m. Superhero work. It was one-time service. And so we can see some of that data. This view for my client is actually looking a little drab. So if I want to modify this detail view, I can click down here in this hot link section to navigate straight to the view controller, client detail. And I want to set the header column to be the client name. And let's see if I can do a card layout view in the detail view. I like that. Let's put the notes here. Oh, there are no notes. So that actually pretty much sums up the whole whole bit of data for a client. Nice. Okay. We'll go ahead and save that. Something I also like to do to make my apps a little more easily navigable by a user and help users understand where they're at in the process of performing their functions in the app is I like to go to the brand tab, and I like to show the logo in the header. We don't have a custom logo yet, but I also like to show the view name. And so this helps users understand where they're at in context of other views. When you're in a main menu view, you can kind of see the view highlighted at the bottom. But if you step into, let's click Daily Planet here and then click related jobs from there, we don't really know where we're at. It just kind of says details right now. We can customize that text, which we will do. But I like this because it helps the user ultimately understand where they're at in the context of what data am I even looking at. Sometimes things can look very similar. Everything can kind of look the same in AppSheet at times. So I'm also going to do a more strongly accented footer. And let's go dark theme. Yeah. Okay. So let's customize some of those detail views so that we can better understand where we're at. Client detail. I'm going to go down here in the display name and I'm going to say, I'll call this client info. And I'm going to go in the job detail. Title that job info, and I'll go in the team detail. Okay, so this should tell me a little bit better where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Okay, now at the top it says team info. And if I scroll down and I click related clients, it tells me client info at the top of the app. Good. That's some helpful context. All right, now let's talk about assigning these and starting this dispatching process. So I showed you a nice dashboard previously with a list of jobs on the left and then a map of jobs on the right. I want to recreate that same environment here. So I already have a table view called job, but I want a map view. I'm going to call this job map. It's going to point to data for the job table, and I'm going to set it to map. UX type, And I'm going to leave this in the menu, side menu for now, because I want to combine these two views into one via a dashboard view. I'm going to select the map column. It'll be the address of service. And I could actually plot data from multiple tables at a time here, which I'm not going to yet. Actually, it might be interesting to see the clients on here as well. So we will have the client address. And I'm going to turn the location mode off. Otherwise, it's going to show my location as the admin user, which I don't really care to see. I'm going to give myself a map icon. Ooh, globe. That's kind of cool. And that'll do it for that. Job, I'm going to move to the menu. I'm going to retitle it job list. And now for my primary view, I'm going to create a dashboard called dispatch. I'm going to set it to a dashboard view type. I'm going to put it in the leftmost position. And now it's going to ask me to select some view entries. So I can select any view that I've already created to be part of this dashboard. I want the job list to be first. And then, job map to be second. And I actually want this to be interactive. So that'll allow me to click on a record on the left or a record in the list, and then it highlights it for me in the map. And vice versa. And for dispatching, do we have like a radio? Yeah, that's a nice icon. And clients. Gotta pick a better icon. Get a nice city icon there. Okay, let's view this guy full screen because that's where dashboards are meant to be viewed. All right, so you see it open up the app to this table view, which is not where I want. I want it to always show up on the dispatch view. So I'm going to go into UX, and then I'm going to go to the options tab, and I am going to move the starting view to dispatch. You can actually introduce a formula here. So maybe based on what user is logged in or, their current GPS location or something, you might pick a different view name dynamically. I'm not going to worry about that yet. Going to save that and going to resync. Okay, so we can see, we click on things on the left and it filters the map and shows me a detailed view flyout here of some information about that service. And then I can add a new service. I can maybe assign this to, let's see, Natasha Romanoff. But I do need it to pre-fill some of these fields. This could be a normal route or a one-time service. And again, I want to set up some logic so that when I click normal route, it populates the whatever client this person normally is the assigned team member for. And then I want to populate the client's name, address in here as well. Here's our multi-select enum list for services. We have our progress buttons. I think I want it to always default to not started. And I like that it's leaving time in and location in blank right now. Total time and all that is 0. That's good for now. So let's start working on some of that logic. All right, we're going to go into our column settings and just kind of start at the top and work our way to the bottom of the job form. So first thing we want to do is whenever we select a team ID, we want to pull that team, whatever row that correlates to in the team table, we want to pull its name column, its phone column, its class column, and its title column. So the way we do that is with a dereference formula. So AppSheet gives us a pretty handy formula. If I go into the other section, the first one in the list is the dereference formula, and it has this pattern. In the first column reference, so anything in square brackets is referencing a column name. So in the first column reference, we reference whatever column in this table is the reference column that we want to look through. So that's the first one. And in this case, it's going to be the team ID. And then we put a dot. And you can think of this like, okay, now we're going through a door at the reference point of team ID. So like in my app here, if I add a new record and I select a team member, Steve Rogers, we're going through Steve Rogers' door into his record right here. So now after I put that period, any column I reference is going to be in the context of this row from the team table. So, and that AppSheet calls that the lookup column. So what column are we looking up in the other table? Team ID, and we want to pull back the name. And my AppSheet toolbox extension is saying, hey, you have two columns in your app called name. One's in the team table, one's in the job table. I'm going to grab the one from the team table. Not that it makes a difference. The context is kind of relative to this first column. But it's nice to know that I am getting the right column name there. So that should, I'm going to save that. And I'm going to open the app here really fast. I'm going to go to dispatch and oops, don't have an overlay action button in here yet. So I'm going to go to the job list, press the new button. Now, if you notice the name column is hidden. So we used to be able to see like this is technically an older version of the app right now. So we can see that the name column is here. It's hidden now because it's dependent on a value being present in team ID. So until I select a team ID, the name column is hidden. So now my formula looked through that reference point in Nick Fury and found his name, Nick Fury. Switch to Steve Rogers. It switches to Steve Rogers, James Bond. You get the picture. So that looks like it's working well. We're going to do the same thing with our phone column. So team ID dot phone. And if it happens to be that the columns are named the same in these tables, but I should always I should always be in the second column position in this dereference formula. It should always be the name of the column as it appears in the table you're looking into. So this would be the team table. So class title. Okay. Let's give that a quick test. Yeah, now we see all those columns are hidden. And then now they all populate. Great. Now I want it to default to normal route, and I want to set the client ID to show up as this team member's assigned client. which is actually going to be a little more tricky. So it might confuse a few people here in the process. Let's start with setting the default for our type column. We're going to set an initial value, and we're going to hard code it to the value normal route. So our client ID is a dropdown already because it's of ref column type, but I want to restrict the options in there. Right now, it shows me every client in the table, but I want to restrict it to only the client, or rather I want to initialize it, not restrict it. You can restrict it by putting a condition here in the valid if that returns a list of appropriate values. And if you want to have the initial value set, we're going to use our auto compute initial value column. So I want the first value if, I'm going to use the if expression. So if our type of service column is equal to normal route, then I want to use the team ID. I'm going to do my dereference formula, related clients. Actually, yeah, I'm going to pick any of those. So that returns a list of things. Related clients is a list. And so I have to put the any expression around there to pick one single item from the list and return its value. And then if else blank. Okay, great. Now I'm actually going to copy that, because if it's a normal route, this person should only be going to clients that are that it's normally assigned to. So I actually am going to restrict the list of possible clients here as well. So I'm going to use this same condition. This is a little bit advanced, but I think we can handle it. So if, again, if the type column is equal to normal route, then I want to restrict this list to only this team member's related clients. Now I can do this because this is a list of client IDs, which is what the client column is looking up right now. So it's a reference column, so it's always looking at the ID, the underlying IDs of that reference table. Now, if it's not a normal route and it's a one-time service, then I want it to be anything. And because I'm passing in a list here, I have to pass in another valid list as my secondary option in this if expression. And so I just want to pull back anything from the clients table. So I'm going to do clients. I'm going to pick the table name and then ID. So that'll return all IDs from the client table. And you can see AppSheet's saying, hey, you at least spelled everything right. And then let's give a nice validation error saying this is not a valid client for this type of service. Nice custom error message, so our user doesn't get confused if the validation fails. Okay, I'm gonna try this one full screen. So I'm gonna go back over here, sync my app, and let's start with Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers doesn't have any related clients, so I'm gonna pick a different guy. Nick Fury has one related client. So the Daily Planet should be, if I select Nick Fury, it should show me the Daily Planet as his client by default. And if I open the dropdown, it should only show me the Daily Planet as an option if it's normal service. Let's test that. Plus button, team ID, Nick Fury. It did set to normal route as our default, and it pre-populated the Daily Planet and the client ID. And my only option is the daily planet. Now I have my new button here. That's kind of something that is kind of hard to get rid of in AppSheet, and I'm not going to deal with it in this video, but this is working how I want it to be. If I switch to one-time service, it no longer populates a client ID with a default value, and now I can pick any place. Now we knew that Steve Rogers had nothing as his default. So if I switch to normal route, that should be empty, and this should be empty. Okay, good. One-time service should let me pick anything. Excellent. All right, well, we are working our way down the list. Now, when we pick a client, we need to pull its name and address. Client ID, client name, and address. So again, you probably guess it. We're going to use that dereference formula. Instead of looking at the team ID, we're going to be looking at the client ID. Got to spell it right. Client ID dot, is it name? Nope. I think it's just client. There we go. Yep. So this is the name of the column and the client table, and it's a data type name. That's what I want. And then address, same one, client ID, dot address. Most excellent. Okay. Moving down the list, services, we've already set that up. Progress, let's set this to default to not started. So I'm going to go down here under auto compute, set my initial value, not started. Time in, location, location out. Those are all fine. Total time. So we can start doing some time calculations here. I want to do one thing first, though. I'm going to create 2 action buttons and a new view. So right now we've been viewing this app from the perspective of a dispatcher, but I actually want to see this from the perspective of the technician or the service person or my team member as well. So I'm going to create a new view, and I'm going to call it my jobs. It's not really going to be specialized to me at the moment, but I actually tell you what, I am going to set it up for me. So I have this team member, Nick Fury, set to my email address. So I'm actually going to do this here. We're going to go to data. I'm going to create a slice, and I only want to see jobs that are assigned to me. I'm going to call this the My Jobs slice. This is going to be looking at the job table. And here's the condition that my email address, so the email address of the current user logged in, is equal to this column team ID. Okay. So if we look in the data again and job, the team ID is populated with an email that's a reference to the table and should match my login email. And then I want to see everything and have all permissions for now. All right, now I'm going to go to my UX view, and I'm going to point this view, instead of to the full jobs table, I'm going to point it to my jobs. And I'm going to change this to a user icon, and it's going to be me. Single user with a shield. I guess the jobs place I'm defending because I'm a hero, right? Okay. And yeah, let's put this on the left. That's fine. We'll sort by, let's group by status or progress. And then sort by date created, descending, time created, descending. So most recent on top. Ooh, I messed that up. Date. Pretty sure I can click things right, hopefully. And then let's do a little count. All right. Going to save that. Go over here, press cancel, resync the app. Okay, now we have a view called My Jobs, and I see the one job that has been done so far. And I'm going to create a new one since that one is finished. Nick Fury. This is a normal route, going to the Daily Planet, do some civilian work. Just going to do some investigation. And it is not started yet. Okay. So very quickly, I'm going to throw a little formatting on that progress column. So I'm going to create a new format rule called not started. Maybe do progress not started. And this is going to be where the progress column is equal to not started. And I want to format let's format the team ID and actually, let's format the client ID. And I can press command click or shift control click on Mac to highlight another thing. And I want to highlight the progress. So now client ID and progress are going to be highlighted. My icon is going to be empty star with a little more solid stuff there. And this is going to be yellow. And I'm going to copy one and do the second one for in progress. And I'm going to do a partially filled star. I know it's in here somewhere. There it is. And this is going to be blue. Actually, let's do orange. We'll do red, yellow, green. That's a nice transition. I'm gonna copy that. I think it's called finished. It's called finished. Progress finished. Yes. And we're gonna do full star. Not start. Green colors. Collapse those. Save it. Sync it. All right, that's looking a lot better. I can kind of tell what I'm looking at apart a little bit. And now I want action buttons for the not started. I want to be able to start time and stop time. So I'm going to go to behavior. I'm going to create a new action button. Call it start. And I'm going to set the time in to time now. And I'm going to set location in to here. So here is a latitude longitude function. And let's do play button. And then I'm going to copy this. I'm going to call this stop. And for demo purposes, I'm going to actually create some variance here with the timeout. So I'm going to do time now plus 3 hours, 30 minutes. And pick a better icon. Oh, too many squares. Stop. Yep. Okay. Now let's see how this works. So we currently have no values for our start and end time. I'm going to press start, and there we go. We got a time in and a location. I think it has probably gotten a wrong geolocation. That's okay. And if I press stop, I get timeout with 3 hours and 30 minutes from now, but my location out doesn't seem to be set. Did I mess that up? Yes, I'm setting the location in. There we go. Okay, so let's resync that. And I'll press stop. And there we go. Now we got our location out. Let's add a third function to this. So I actually want to update the progress when they click this. So progress is going to switch when they press start. It's going to become in progress. And when they press stop, it's going to become finished. Let's resync that. Okay, we can kind of see the progress here by the icon. Right now it's set to not started. If I press start, it went yellow. And if I press stop, it should go green. Excellent. You might want a little tighter interaction in a live business app, but for this purpose, I think this is going to do well. So I also want to adjust this job detail view. I'm seeing a bunch of stuff that I don't really care to see. So I want to see the client at the top. And then the next thing I want to see is the, let's do the team ID, James Bond. Column order, date. Actually, I just want to do time in, time out, progress. Progress up to the top. Services. What does services look like up here? Military campaign. Let's throw notes in there instead. Okay. I think that's nice and tidy. All right, so let's go back to my jobs. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to start it, meaning throw it into in progress. And now in my dispatch dashboard, let's see here, dispatch dashboard resync. I think I want to split these up. This job list, I want to group it by progress. And then I also want to style these map icons because right now everything looks the same to me. So I'll start with the map icons. The easiest way to stylize map icons is to have your format rule target the map column. So this is the address column in this case. So I did a command click there to add the address column to the list of formatted columns. All right, now we're looking much better. We have both colors and icons on our map. This is way more visible and legible. So remember, we are also showing data from our client table here. So I think I want to throw a format rule for our client table. I'm just going to call it client icon. And I'm going to format the address column. I'm going to get that same building icon. And, you know, let's do like a teal cyan color. All right, there we go. I can't see my other stuff anymore. Don't know why that is. Hopefully I didn't break anything too bad. Okay, I think it's just covering it up. Kind of superseding the other icon color. Interesting. Let me try this. Can I reorder that? Nope. Well, all right, we're just gonna live with that for now. UX view dispatch. I'm gonna go to my job list and I want to group that by progress, ascending, throw a count on there, column order. Let's have the client ID first. I'm going to throw the client name in there so we don't see that icon again. And then the team ID as well there. Okay, and then why not the services? Okay, so that's going to be looking better. I want to do one last thing before I adjourn this session with you guys. I want to calculate pay. All right, so we have on our team data table, we have a rate that our team members should be paid for work. And then we have on our client table, a fee that our client should be charged for work. And these are hourly fees. So, and rates. So I'm going to first calculate the total time, which is going to be the duration, subtraction of time out minus time in. And then I'm going to multiply that by the team members' pay and then by the client's fee schedule. So it used to be that multiplying or getting the decimal value of time in hours was actually pretty tough. Between two times, you had to do some fancy expression stuff, but AppSheet has made it a little bit easier for us. So I'm going to set a formula here for total time. And I'm going to start with the obvious. So this is going to be the subtraction of time out minus time in. And what this is going to give us is a duration. Okay. And if I look here in my time things, it shows us what a duration data type looks like. So it is just a number of seconds, minutes, and hours. But I want to convert this duration into an actual decimal. So I'm going to go down here and this actually looks interesting. So total minutes. This gives me, if I pass in a duration, it's going to give me the total number of minutes in that duration. in the form of a decimal. And so I want hours, so I can just divide that by 60. So I'm going to do total minutes and then I'm going to divide by 60. And I actually want to do 60.0 just to make sure I'm dividing a decimal by a decimal, and I return a decimal. And I can actually do a quick test on this. If I run test, it's going to run that on every column in my table. This is the most recent one I did, which we knew was about 3.5 hours, and it's resulting in 3.47, which is pretty reasonable. So I like that. Now I want to do 2 different types of multiplications. Okay. So I want to get the amount of pay I'm going to be paying my team member. So I need to do team ID dot, is it called rate? Yeah, rate times total time. And I'm going to do a very similar expression for client cost. Total, we'll start with the dereference. Client ID. Is that right? Oh, I spelled client wrong. Client ID dot fee times total time. And I think that should sort us out pretty well. Just to put a little cherry on top, what I'll do in my job list is I will, so we have a grouping by progress, right? Well, we were doing a count aggregation, but I want to do instead, I want to do a summation of total client cost. So how much revenue is my hero firm going to be making from those finished jobs? And I want to add 2 columns for that. So I want to do, let's add 3. We'll do total time, team pay, client cost. Okay, those are all currently blank right now because we haven't been doing any work on them. But if I click here for Mr. Daily Planet, I'm going to press stop, and it calculated our time, gave me some team pay and some client cost. So let's do the same for our man, James Bond. Start, finish. We got Bruce Banner here in the Eiffel Tower. You don't want the Hulk near the Eiffel Tower. Just going to say probably not a good idea. And it does that calculation as well. 4 hours, 47, or 4 hours, 0.47 other hours. So basically 4.5 hours. And then we're starting to sum up our total amount of finished work, looking at $1,161. Now I'm going to say there's probably going to be a net business loss for sending the Hulk to Paris. So I don't think I'm going to make any money today. But we have a cool dispatch app. So I know we didn't get to everything. We might do a follow-up on this. But guys, thank you for watching. And you can always find more cool content like this on our YouTube channel. So if you enjoyed this, give us a like, subscribe, drop us a comment. And if you go to appsheettraining.com, we also have some paid courses that go deeper dives into certain types of features or things that help you build really amazing applications. All righty. Clark, you got anything you want to share?
No, I should be good. Hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys again next week.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.